Okay, and welcome back. As you can see, all the decaling is done for what decals I could actually use. The white decals are useless. They're very, very transparent indeed and blended into the blue of the hull. After being warned by Big Dave, another mention there for you, after being warned himself by another user, I just got a label, cut the letters out with my Swan Morton blade after measuring about 6mm high, and I just used it as a stencil, painted the white on, topped it around the edges, and then put the white decals on top of that. It's not the best job in the world on that side, but it's not too bad on this side. The actual flag decal there, just put a bit of white on square and just put that on, tied it up around the edges with a blue. The strip decals were useless themselves as well for the yellow and the red. So I just got my 2mm masking tape, masked off where the yellow is, painted the red, waited for that to dry, removed the tape, and then free-handed the yellow one. And then it's not the straightest job in the world, but like I said, just topped it up with the red and then the black for the lip, and it's not too bad. I've also done the back, as you can see. I haven't put the Holyhead lifeboat decal on yet. I've got to put that on and get still. And then the other side, as you can see. Now, the RNLB Christopher Pierce nameplate that I've put on, I printed that off at work with our brother labelling machine because it doesn't come with one. It just says RNLB. Smallest font available, which is 6, and just took it off the backing paper and put it straight onto the hull. Because that's longer than it should be, I've had to move this lifeboat decal back and just cut it there, because that's one decal, and then move the flag back a bit. But as you can see, it's not too bad at all. Then you've got the registration decals here. RNLI is one decal, 17 dash is one decal, and then the 4-1 are separate. So I'll just put them on as straight as I could. So the decaling is now done. I can now actually start on the base. Basically, I'm not going to explain it too much. It's just a bit of foam glued to the wood, and the wires are hidden underneath. I'll explain that on the next update. But the decals don't look too bad. Stay with me. Okay, and welcome back. As you can see, I'm starting work on my sea base. I didn't really explain much in the last update. Like I said, using the foam, cutting it all out, and then making the little channel. And what I did is I made a little hole in the foam and then made a little channel underneath for the wiring. And then what I did is I filled in that hole with some normal household polyfiller, waited for that to dry, and then glued the switch on top of that, so it's like discreetly hidden. You can see a bit of the red bits of wiring, but once this is painted, it's going to look really nice. Now, a mate of mine lives up the road who built a Titanic diorama sinking. He said he used epoxy resin to make a sea base. I'm building on a budget, as you always know. I always try and build on a budget. So what I did is I found a really good tutorial on YouTube about making sea base with toilet paper, of all things. So the guy on the video, he made up a PVA water mix, and you can see it's like a water consistency. So using my brush, just dabbed some PVA all the way around. And then using one square sheet of toilet paper at a time, I just built up the wave effect with the toilet paper, and then made 3 layers. So I'd square toilet paper there, a couple of squares there, a couple of squares there. Then painted the PVA water mix back on again, and then built it up to 3 layers. And while it was still wet, I used the pointed edge of my normal brush, just a normal artist brush, and then started making little shapes. So I'd jab it there, that side, and then jab it at this side, and making a little wash there for the pointed front part of the boat, for the lifeboat, and then just randomly making little shapes for the waves all the way around. And then I came to the back of the part of the section here where the rear of the lifeboat, where the propellers are, and just manipulated the wet toilet paper with my brush and made a little wash there. So I did that side first, let it dry for 24 hours. And then I did this side and let it dry for 24 hours. 24 hours later, I could see that the wash hadn't you know, been built up as much as I hoped it would. So I cut off the edges of the toilet paper all the way around because it was draping over, and then reused that and started to jab it in with the glue as well, the white glue water mix, and made some wave wash around the side of the lifeboat. And I'm thinking it's not looking too bad at all, not bad at all. With the actual battery compartment, I also put a bit of the toilet paper on the cardboard and then cut that out, and then I can just place that on top. But a great way on making cheap waves for the water effect, just using toilet paper and white glue with water. Not bad at all. Stay with me. Okay, and welcome back. It's finale time on the me RNLI lifeboat, and I've been working hard the last couple of weeks, especially over Christmas and New Year, and I can happily say she's looking absolutely wonderful on the sea base as well. So here's the final reveal. Well, there it is, all finished. When I left you, I'd just finished getting ready the base for paint. Now the paint that I used, it was a mixture of my Falkirk Greenscape. If you remember from my Munster build, I used that to bring it out his facial detail with a bit of green on top of my sea glass. I also used a bit of 36152 blue, a bit of white, 36130, and a touch of number 26 brown, just here and there. And when I painted it on with my brush, it came out a greenish blue, very more green than blue, to be honest, and I was really happy with the results. So as per the tutorial, once I painted all that on, I left it for 72 hours to dry, because that's what he said before you gloss it. Once it had dried for 72 hours, I then used my white and started painting on the wash and the waves, and around the back here as well for the propellers, and left that to dry for 24 hours. Took about 2 or 3 coats over about 2 or 3 days, and then again let it 24 hours to dry. And then what I did to bring out all the other detail, all the raised detail and the various shapes, I just dry brushed the white on and laid my brush flat and just went over the tops of the various detail. Took about 2 coats for that, so another 2 days for that, and let that dry. Once dry, I was happy with the results that I got, and I thought, you know what, should I really gloss it? I messaged the chap who did the tutorial. He never got back to me because he's probably too busy. But I asked the guys over at Bitmodeler and Scale Modeler, and they watched the video, and because I put the video in the link, and they says, gloss it, just gloss it, Wayne, it'll look a hell of a lot better. So I did. So using my Revell Aqua Colour Gloss, put 1 coat of that on, and as per the tutorial, just brushed on neat PVA, let that another 24 hours to dry, and then 2 coats of the gloss, the Revell Gloss. And I'm glad I listened to everybody, so thank you to everybody for that. Once I'd done the sea base, painted it all on, I then started on my crew figures. Using my NATO pilot figures on that. There wasn't really that many poses I could actually use for the standing up figures. So I just picked out a couple of the figures from each set of the sprue. So I've got a female crew member there that's just come out the port door, and is just about to put a helmet on to come on duty. I've got a guy here with his helmet on who's just looking out in the back. I've got my guy up there on the secondary command area. I've got a guy sitting down making some notes, and for a bit of diversity, I put a black crew member on and he's pointing towards something. Again, I was very limited with the actual poses, but those NATO figures worked out an absolute treat. So I glued those on with the glue and glaze and let them dry. 24 hours later, I started work on the mast. Finished that bit off. So I put the radar thing on there. You can see that it's movable. I didn't glue it in. You can see how it's movable. Put it at an angle. And then I've got the mast here and the various bits that go onto it. Now, before I put the boat on, those little mounts there, I actually put one of my pots on there to hold that mast because it kept trying to tip back on me. With all the bits on it, it was actually quite heavy, so I left that on there to keep that holding back, and it dried fairly straight. Now for the flag, picked up another tip-off brick modeller. I can't remember the guy's name, I do apologise for that. When he does his ship builds, he puts the flag on a bit of foil, and then puts a bit of thin sewing thread in between, and then folds it over with a Pritt stick, and then just glues the sewing thread onto the mast. So that's exactly what I've done. And then I've just curled it a little bit, as you can see, because the foil is very, very manipulatable, and worked out an absolute treat. Now for the actual mini boat, again, Big Dave, there's another mention for you. He used tin foil for the actual cover. So I glued the tin foil on, let it dry, and then just spray painted my VW orange from Halfords and just let that dry. And I've also put the engine on the back as well. You can just about make it out there. Painted that in black and silver for the actual engine cover itself. So I glued those on. Then I've got these aerials that go at an angle. They attach to the mast at the side as well, as you can see. And that's pretty much it. It's all complete. Once I'd let the gloss dry, I decided to put a little dolphin on there, jumping out the water. I went to Portugal last November with the wife, and we went to Zoo Marine, which is like a water park with the with like a zoo and the various sea dolphins and seals and that. And they, you know, they've got a conservation thing for the seals and the dolphins. And also, I took my inspiration from the film Under Siege. As the Missouri's going back to the dock to be retired, you see a little dolphin just popping out the water, jumping out the water. So that's what I did with him. It's not quite to scale, I will admit that. So my wife bought me some plasticine, and then I just used one of her ornaments as a guide and just made me little dolphin there, as you can see. And then, luckily, the plasticine was bakeable, so I put him in the oven. My wife put it on the low setting, I think it was number 1, for about 5 to 7 minutes, and he dried an absolute treat. And I've just painted some light grey on, and then a coat of the XF80 light grey from Tamiya, and then just dry brushed a bit of dark grey on him just to bring out some features. And I've also used a bit of clear sprue, just jabbed that into the actual base, PVA'd it, wait for that to dry, and then just glued my little dolphin on top of there. And as you can see, from a distance you can barely make out the clear sprue part. Well, there it is, all finished, and like I said, I'm really, really chuffed with the results. Not bad at all. So just one last look at it. Oh, I better switch the light on as well, because I wasn't sure whether with all the wet toilet paper the light would actually still work, but there it is. The light is still working. Not bad at all. So just switch that light off. The battery lid, you know, it isn't concealed as much as it should be, but I'm happy with the way that is. So with my inconsistent rambling over, hopefully you haven't been too bored and you've enjoyed this build as much as I've done building it, because it is actually a tricky kit to build. I'll put some stills on at the end of this video, and thank you very much for watching.